So we have separated the program in a couple of blocks, and the first block will be covered by 3 speakers. They will speak in the theme AI as an assistant, and I'm very happy to introduce Ron Burns to you. Welcome, Ron Burns. And Tamara will start off with a couple of sentences about yourself.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Ron Burns. I'm with a company called Biofourmis, which has been working very diligently in the AI and biomarker space for a number of years. And I also want to point out, as a smaller startup venture, us startup guys are always on time. I don't know what's going on with these big tech guys, but it is what it is. With that said, I'm excited to prepare to present to you today some of my thoughts on space.
Thank you, Ron. We'll switch to your presentation.
Thank you. Okay, and just so I'm clear, I do have control of these slides, right?
Yes, that is correct. You should be able to move to the slides yourself if you want to try it, please.
Okay. I don't see an arrow, which is why I'm asking.
Yeah, good. Just a second. I'll bring that up for you.
There we go.
Fantastic.
Can you still hear me okay?
Very good. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. So I'll begin with the question, where are we with AI? This is beyond the life sciences space, but just societally, where are we? And I wanted to start with a quote from Roy Amara, a famous American scientist, who said many years ago, "We tend to overestimate the effect of a technology in the short run and underestimate the effect in the long run." And I think we've seen that over multiple technology adoption curves in my life, from the internet to social media, and now I think to AI.
Ron, before we dive deeper into your topic, could you please turn on the camera? Is that possible?
Is it
wonderful?
On?
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. So in terms of, for the purposes of this conference, it's about safety, it's about security. I thought it would make sense to maybe define these 2 items around AI a little bit more succinctly. So AI cybersecurity focuses on systems, unauthorized access, data breaches. This is the IT stuff. We're all familiar with this. We're all using dual factor authentication. Security has been a big issue for a while now, and AI cybersecurity is going to take it up a notch. And all of the security companies are on this. Fantastic to see. A challenge for sure, but a manageable challenge. A more difficult challenge for our space, I think, is AI safety. And AI safety focuses on broader considerations: human well-being, societal values, ethical implications. So why does AI safety matter? Well, in life sciences, we know that safety matters. We've been on top of safety for many, many decades. We have safety systems. We have regulatory bodies, both in Europe and in the United States, that really do a good job in terms of taking safety seriously when it comes to things like adverse events, nausea, high blood pressure, and what have you. But AI safety is a different kettle of fish altogether. That's where we see things now emerging, particularly with the more advanced models, where AI can optimize flawed objectives, drift from their original goals, and become power-seeking. In fact, some AI models will resist shutdown now in advanced testing, which I find very interesting. I have a couple of Macs around here that resist shutdown, but I don't feel consciousness behind that decision on the other end of the old Macintosh. So resisting shutdown is a scary thing. And some recent AI safety experts have asserted that general AI, will be capable of overthrowing governments, which is a terrifying thing to think about. And just so you don't think I'm sitting here blustering in the suburbs of Philadelphia in my room about nothing, Center for AI Safety put out a letter this year, 2024, signed by 300 notable figures, including those 4 figures on the right: Bill Gates, we know, 2 very significant figures at OpenAI, and a very significant individual at Google DeepMind. And I want to read this paragraph because it's important. Mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority alongside other societal scale risks, such as pandemics and nuclear war. Now, that's a safety issue way beyond an adverse event, right? extinction is a pretty bad adverse event. So why is this happening? A lot of folks are like, sure, that doesn't make sense to me. Really, AI is going to take over. What's happening technically? What's happening technically is very interesting. The way AI works is AI, the large language models or diffusion models are trained on data. And you have someone supervising that training. And for most of the history of AI development, the supervisor was a human supervisor. The AI models have become so sophisticated now that humans don't understand how they're creating things. When I say things, I mean AI is creating applications, coding applications, and human developers are saying, I don't know how that AI did that. I wouldn't have done it that way, but that's really good. So what's happened now is the weaker models have become the trainers and the supervisors of the stronger models, which creates the dynamic where AI becomes self-fulfilling and self-perpetuating, which, although amazing, and there's been a lot of science fiction movies that cover this topic, it's at hand and we need to understand it as a society. So I asked the question here, and it's a little bit hyperbolic, but bear with me. Which AI future, which version of us are we going to embrace, are we going to create for ourselves? Are we going to embrace the beautiful vision of Ray Kurzweil around the singularity? If you've never read Ray Kurzweil, I invite you to go read his books, The Coming Age of Smart Machines, followed by The Coming Age of Spiritual Machines. Ray was ahead of the AI game in the late 70s, early 80s, and his vision is that we'll eventually be able to upload our consciousness into the singularity and become eternal and live long enough to take 2-3 million light year trips on spaceships to other planets to populate them after we destroy our planet. Wonderful sci-fi moment, right? But it is nonetheless very optimistic and you know, a beautiful vision where we could go with this technology. There is another vision that's been out there also from the 80s. We could end up with this guy, which, by the way, I would point out that the flesh-covered version of this guy actually somehow became the governor of California. So let us not underestimate the potential for weird things to happen. So is it this bifurcated? Are we going to be eternal beings, or are we going to have a extinction level event with AI? It is being talked about more seriously now, and I think we have a responsibility in life sciences to understand this. So we have obligations to this discussion on multiple levels. This first bullet point, I think, is historic and important and not well understood in our industry. Technology-led industries around safety have stalled dramatically. OpenAI eliminated their safety group, and all of those people on that previous slide, founders, the CTO of OpenAI, have left the business over this issue. This is significant because clearly, in my view and the view of most of the industry, OpenAI is ahead of the game. And there is some debate as to whether whoever gets to general artificial intelligence will win everything. There may not be multiples, there may just be one. In which case, it's dangerous to have technology companies regulate themselves. And the international drug approval bodies, in this case, could act as a model for what an AI regulatory body could be. So I think it's pretty well established at this point in our culture, in our economy, in our society. The FDA and the European drug approval agencies are well respected. Industry, which often doesn't like excess regulation, and I understand that, have found a way to work with the FDA. And I think all of us would agree it's been a relatively good thing to make sure that drugs and medical devices are safe. I think that same framework can be used and that same model can be used around a national or international AI regulatory body. And what's interesting, historically, 1,000 years from now, when they look back at the history of AI, the first regulatory efforts around AI were, in fact, the FDA's regulations around software as a medical device, or as the hip among us are now calling it, SAMDA. The FDA has already set forth some significant guidance, and there's businesses like Biofourmis, where I work, where there is work done to manage these regulatory expectations. So the first attempt in human history to regulate AI has already happened, and it's happened with our good friends at the FDA, albeit we're regulating the Cro-Magnon men of AI and machine learning at this point. Is still a significant milestone that we should consider and be proud of. And the FBI has offered significant guidance on AI and has done so in multiple centers. So they're taking this issue very seriously, which I appreciate. And again, I want to make sure that everyone listening to me now understands I'm not here representing Biofourmis exclusively. These opinions are my opinions and not the opinions of Biofourmis. But I do work for Biofourmis, which is in the business of creating digital endpoints, FDA-cleared algorithms around wearables and what have you. And it's a tremendously interesting space where algorithm development is now much more of a structured process and needs to be FDA cleared. And the regulatory lift here is heavy, but it's good. It's good. It keeps us constrained and it keeps us looking towards things that make sense. And the fact that we as a clinical community, clinical trials community for years, have accepted and embraced the notion of a regulatory roadmap that we need to get through for approvals, both for drugs, devices, and now algorithms, again, I think stands as an example of how the tech industry should be willing to be regulated in a similar way so that their AI algorithms are proved to be safe for society and not dangerous. So getting back to FDA and the FDA's guidance in this space, the FDA has provided some interesting guidance saying we want to foster collaboration in industry around AI. And so one of the things I wanted to offer today is an idea of what that might look like. What would AI collaboration look like in our space? Biofourmis is proposing, and again, I'm not here selling anything. This doesn't cost any money. This is a cooperative effort, the CRS consortium. But the notion here is that we pool our resources as industry together to start building FDA-cleared algorithms for specific things, like in this case, CRS around oncology studies. We're also doing work around scratch and sleep algorithms for atopic dermatitis, for example. But the idea is that you can really reduce the time to development around these algorithms. And these algorithms are going to remain neutral in terms of a competitive advantage from one pharmaceutical or one med device company to another. So if we can create a layer of cooperation that also is tied to a regulatory body that keeps this AI safe, but then we can also create a body of cleared AI algorithms in the AI and machine learning space, then instead of some one of these algorithms taking 3, 4, 5 years to get approved, we can reduce that approval time to a year, year and a half, 2 years, benefiting human health, benefiting the entire clinical trial space, and improving human health. So with that said, what is the CRS consortium's value proposition? Let me just lay this out very specifically. So as I mentioned, quicker time to ROI through pooling of resources and in particular pooling of anonymized data to generate accelerated algorithm development. More efficient spend of investment through sharing the risk involved with digital tool development. Opportunity to contribute clinical insight, weigh in on study design and help define biomarker criteria. Regulatory adoption driven by aligned cross-industry collaboration. This is important because I think there are unknown potholes to come. And if we go into this as an industry and we work on these problems together, I think we'll hit the spirit of that FDA guidance to collaborate as an industry on this problem. And lastly, initial access to complete solution with disease-specific care pathways, research protocol templates, and clinical workflows. So again, what's interesting from my perspective, having been in the clinical space for a while now, we've created a really good synergy with regulatory bodies to do our work and improve human health, to keep drugs and medical devices safe. I think the whole AI technology industry can look at what we're doing and have a model on how AI algorithms can be regulated in a positive way that isn't the heavy hand of regulation that some politicians would think would be too heavy, but also mitigates the risk of a technology that has huge potential downsides. So with that said, and being aware of time, if you are interested at all in learning more about the CRS consortium, or for that matter, the scratching, sleep, and atopic dermatitis algorithm that we're working on, these are collaborative efforts. Love to hear from you. ron.burns@biofourmis.com. And with that, I'm not sure I understand the format entirely, Linda. Are we supposed to pause here for questions, or is that another time?
Yes, Ron, that would be great for our audience here if we can answer some questions. And ladies and gentlemen, if you would like to ask Ron a question, then just send it to me in the chat window and make sure to select send to moderators before you send your message, please. And Ron, I will have a look here in the chat and see when a question comes in, then I'll let you know.
I hope you're going to read it to me out loud, because I do not have my new AI eyes to read the tiny type on this.
Of course, no problem at all. So there is no specific question on your topic yet. Ladies and gentlemen.
I see, is there a presentation that will be shared?
Yes, I will answer that later in the chat. And yes, the presentation, by the way, I can already answer it now, of course, will be shared with everybody who is in the summit here for longer than 1 hour. And we are going to send everyone then the link by email to watch the video here and also the presentations.
We have a good question. I see it with my human eyes. Is there any reason why the AI safety efforts have been stalled? Is it okay if I grab that one, Linda?
Of course, please go ahead.
To answer that in a non-controversial way, let's talk for a second about the founding documents around OpenAI. So OpenAI, when it was founded, in its founding charter, agreed to set aside 20% of all capital raised for safety efforts. In our world, in clinical software, it's a big word for testing. But testing in the AI context is very important because it can prevent things like AI doing bad things. So with recent funding rounds reaching numbers like $100 billion, 20% of $100 billion turns out to be $20 billion. And even in the life sciences space, we can round that number into being a big number in our mind. And the competitive landscape is so rife to get to the finish line here on the next large language models and diffusion models, that I think the decision's been made to, instead of spending that money on safety, to spend it on advanced development and speed to market. I understand that as a business decision, but if you look into this a little, dig into it a little bit more deeply, you'll see a significant number of very senior executives at OpenAI resigned over this. And I don't think this is something we should take lightly. I am not of the belief that Google or Microsoft or OpenAI or Apple can self-regulate in this area any more than a life sciences company could be expected to say, this drug's perfectly safe, trust us, we figured it out, take it. There's got to be some checks and balances in our culture that say, when something is dangerous, we have a mechanism to manage it, to understand it, to build it. Doesn't mean we don't build it on the potential, but it does mean, as a society, we have an obligation to look at what's happening. And I think, being in the life sciences space, we have respectfully and cooperatively worked with regulatory bodies for many decades. We are a model for what AI regulation needs to look like going forward. I'll also add, I think, on an individual basis, we have a responsibility to argue for the benefits of AI in society. For example, let's say you're on your way back from a trade show or meeting up with a customer, you're at a bar at an airport, and someone sits down next to you and goes, man, this AI stuff is terrible, all these fake videos, fake news, it's awful. You could fall down that rabbit hole, but we in the life sciences community have to be the people that stand up and say, but we're figuring out a way to use it for human health. We're figuring out a way to bring oncology and cancer drugs to market faster. We're extending human life with it. It's not all bad. And if that's what we believe and that's what we want to evangelize for in society, we need to find a structural mechanism to allow it to happen.